Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Baggage Claim, a show made by mentally ill people. My name is Katrina.
I'm Julia, and this is a show about mental health in today's society. Tonight's episode is about creating your own wellness recovery action plan, or WRAP.
And I'm Mel, and we're here every Tuesday at 9. And just so you guys remember, we are not mental health professionals. We are mental health patients. So if you're feeling like you're in a crisis and you need to reach out, we've got the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline down on the scroller. And don't feel ashamed. Go ahead and reach out.
Definitely.
All
right, let's get this show started. What are we talking about?
We're talking about WRAP, ladies. Do you know anything about WRAP?
I hadn't heard anything about WRAP until you threw this out on last week's show, and I was like, I don't know what that is, and you couldn't find the notes, and we decided that we were going to do a real show about it. So, and I'm glad, because I think this could work for me.
Awesome. What about you, Katrina?
So I've heard about it a little bit from you. It's been a little bit nagging me to do a WRAP plan, and I have not. But I don't, I know a little bit about it, but not much.
Cool. Well, tonight you're going to learn all about WRAP. All of us are. So basically, WRAP was developed in 1997 by a group of mental health patients who were really tired of all the ups and downs that go along with mental illness, and they wanted to take more charge of their own recoveries. And so they decided to come up with a system that would work for them and work for their recoveries. So WRAP is where you monitor distressing feelings and behaviors and plan your response in advance, thereby reducing or eliminating them. What does that really mean? Basically, it's a way of tracking your behaviors and responding to them so that when you're on the verge of a manic episode, Katrina, or you're on the verge of another panic attack, Mel, you can be more aware and take actions that may lessen the severity of or even stop the episode. Sound good?
Well, yes, absolutely. I think that could have been very useful the last 2 weeks and throughout my life.
I'm one of these people who I like to write lists, and I like to have I feel like once I put that down on paper, I know where I'm going. And so the idea of literally sitting down, I've never thought about sitting down and writing out a plan, like actually writing one out. I get plans in my head, but putting it on paper, what? I mean, I actually was like, why did I never think of this? I kind of felt like I got down on myself. It's like, how come I never looked this up? When you said something, that's why I was really glad that we did it.
You can basically help plan your own recovery and your own well-being, your mental well-being. So WRAP can be used by anyone to help anticipate and cope with life's inevitable stress. So it's not only for people with mental health issues. It can be used by anyone. However, in particular, it can help with a variety of mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, bipolar, different phobias, trauma, and even substance abuse. So let's get down to it. What does all this look like? I'm going to walk you through creating your own WRAP tonight. That's awesome. And everyone watching, the link to the template for creating your own WRAP is on our YouTube page. So you can go to the YouTube page for this show right now and click on the link so you can create your very own WRAP. Or you can follow along with us as we walk through it tonight, whatever you want.
Yes, okay. In the description below.
The first step is writing out what you were like when you were well. So why do you think we would write out what we were like when we were well?
Baseline.
I mean, to know what that base is and what it, to me, what it feels like, to be there.
Well, you kind of have to, don't you have to come to terms with yourself on, what is well for me? What do I consider?
Exactly. Like, you may think that you've always been irritable, or you may think that you were never a very social person. And maybe you've just been dealing with mental health symptoms that, for so long that you've forgotten what you're like without those symptoms. So we're going to go through and we're going to list out some things, like some characteristics that we have when we're well. For instance, I'm optimistic, free-spirited, very active and energetic, and very sensitive. So those are a few of my traits. What about you guys?
Ooh, I would say that I'm definitely talkative, friendly, more energetic, more outgoing, and just overall like at peace?
I'm definitely talkative, but I'm talkative in general, so it's hard to tell the difference. I am, but I think the speed, I think the kind of talking I do, the way I interact with people versus like just really manic talking. I mean, and kind of not knowing where it's going. So, so constructive conversation with the people that I love and like the things that we enjoy, and able to like, because I've always been on early not early, super early, but like up out of bed at the similar time. Don't waste away the morning. Take the coffee with the pups. Go play ball. Get the dishes done. I'm a schedule kind of person. I am someone that, because of my physical disabilities, I feel more accomplished at what I can do. And I kind of know what those limits are. So that's me. Getting up, staying up, not sleeping around, feeling like tossing the ball a lot for the dog you guys all see.
And when you're not well, too, all those things kind of fall to the wayside.
A lot of them do.
Yeah.
Or I get mad that they're there.
I think like my biggest one is just not talking. I will shut down completely. And I kind of become mean. I'm not gonna lie. I have an attitude, and that attitude is just like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to deal with it.
It's okay. We're all here to be honest.
I like it. I'm glad. It's the best way to be. It's just easier because it lets people know that they're not alone, because we all feel some of these things. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say shut down. I get really cranky. And I don't mean just irritable. I mean cranky. Like, why did that thing, like, as if the universe gives a crap about what I'm doing on the daily. And yet it's like, that drawer that just bashed me, hates me. It's like, it's a drawer. Relax. It's just a drawer.
Right. Just taking things really seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's important to like list out the things that are not just positive attributes, but more negative attributes on this list too, because like on the flip side, we might think, oh, I must be getting sick or something. And really it's like, no, I've always been like this. This is a trait that I always exhibit. Like I'm always like way too sensitive. That doesn't mean that I'm not well. That means that, that's something else I need to work on. So now once we make our list, then we move on to our wellness toolbox. That's the next step, is developing your own wellness toolbox. So this is a list of things you've done in the past or could do to stay healthy or help yourself feel better when you're not doing well. So in my wellness toolbox, I have cuddling with my pup, going for a run, or talking to a friend. Those are 3 things. Now you can have like 50 things in here. You can have as much or as little as you want, whatever works for you. This is totally, sizable.
Mel, you go ahead.
All right. So wellness toolbox, like things so definitely the dogs. I know we repeat that all the time, but I mean, the more I'm able to do things and keep my mind on taking care of them, the better. I get more things like editing. I do a lot of editing for podcasting, and I like doing it. I actually do. I like teaching people stories. So I do more of that. And that's been a place that I can go to find peace. So I love it. It's like, it seems like the silliest thing, ums and ers and editing on that. It shouldn't be fun, but it is, because I get to hear the voices of people I really care about. So it's like, that's a big one. Besides, because I'm pretty much not homebound, but I don't drive because of my disabilities. And so I do other things. And those are the things that I fall back on every time. I also love to watch wrestling. I know pro wrestling is one of my favorite things. It's so much fun. It's the best kind of suspending of disbelief for me. It's just such a fun place. I've been watching Jeopardy lately. So those are the kind I enrich myself in the ways that I enjoy the most in my toolkit, because I have to. I've been meeting I just said to you guys a little while ago, I've been meeting with my friends for 8.5 years, once a week, to BS, and we still do it. We still do it, and we've had a lot of crazy go on. But if I didn't have those guys and that Tuesday night, Tuesday evening. It's literally one of my talk therapies. I go to talk therapy once a month and also every Tuesday. So
Yeah. I think we're talking about like what would be in our wellness.
yeah,
Like what our wellness
Toolbox,
plan is.
yeah, your toolbox.
Yeah, my toolbox. I mean, definitely my dogs, like all of you. What I don't even know if you could call this like in my toolbox, but like having a routine is very important to me. So getting off that routine obviously causes other issues. And I think being outside, I think I've actually started to really realize that now that COVID is happening. I mean, like going to Disney World used to be like my husband, like that was our thing. We used to go all the time. And now we can't. So that's hard. But I'm going off topic. So being outside is really important.
No, because it's in your toolbox. And I think even if we're talking about our toolboxes right now, we have to talk about them in the context of the current time because we have had to switch our toolbox up a little bit, right? I mean,
I mean, that's like the big one is everything's kind of like turned its head on the heels or whatever.
I feel like I'm having to build a new one. I mean, some of the stuff I listed is totally accessible, but wasn't for long. There was no wrestling for months because you can't get together and, all the infected countries that have them, people can't move.
Yeah.
Sports in general. I mean, I'm, because I have a background, like now you have to, and I think about it too, because it goes back to the first thing where it's like, oh my God, I'll never get to do that again. But so I've had to, time to get a new toolbox.
No, it's just a different sort of toolbox for now. It's shifted a bit. So next is your daily maintenance plan. Now, these are certain things you've discovered that you need to do every day to maintain your wellness. So for me, that may be eating 3 healthy meals a day, which is a big one for me because I'm in recovery from an eating disorder. And so it's very easy for me to try not to eat 3 meals a day. So, and then that affects my mental well-being. So to stay well, I need to fight those urges and eat those 3 meals. I take my meds in the morning and at night as prescribed, and I walk my dog every morning. So those are 3 of the things I have to do every day in order to feel well, to feel my best, to stay well.
Mine are I wake up like at a certain time and I literally have to get straight out of bed. I need to get coffee and I need to feed the dog. It's a routine thing. It's like I can't get out of wanting to still have a routine, which has been difficult during these times. But those are still, I think, healthy habits that I'm doing is, getting up, feeding the dogs, having coffee. I might not have a plan after that, but that's okay. I have to deal with that.
Totally.
I'm big on routine too. I mean, I usually do the dishes. We don't have a dishwasher right now in this house, so I do the dishes as part of my thing, and I try to keep the house up nice as much as I can. So I'm with you. I mean, that is definitely a true one. Yeah.
But it's hard. And this is such a funny conversation to be having right now because, in January, if we were talking about rap, I'm sure our answers would be completely different. And you guys are right. Like you really do have to just, you can't just create this, but you kind of do have to come back to it. It sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, that's why when I read it, I was like, this could really help right now because it's really hard to fall into the dread pit. It's really crazy right now. And
I mean,
go ahead.
I was just going to ask Julia if she agrees with that statement of, you've done it. Have you had to go back and?
Oh yeah, it's constantly evolving. Okay. I would say. I mean, not constantly. You don't have to revisit it every day, but I mean, from time to time, you definitely need to revisit it and certain things, especially like your as we get further into this, you'll see there's certain things that are going to be more evolving than others.
Let's get into it.
Yeah. Okay. So next we go into our triggers and we want to list out, these are events or circumstances that when they happen, they produce a very uncomfortable emotional response. So obviously we all get triggered by things. if not, probably not just from time to time, probably almost daily, I would say there's something that's triggering. For me, some of my triggers that could lead to my mental health not being what it could be are not sleeping enough, stress at work, and a relationship ending. That could be a friendship, that could be romantic. It doesn't matter. Any sort of relationship ending and the stress that puts on me can be a major trigger for me.
This is such a funny one because Julia had asked us before we come on to like come up with some triggers and stuff like that, and we were talking about it, and I was having a hard time just thinking about it. And I asked my husband, like, what do you think my triggers are? And he goes, everything. And, like driving in the car, sitting, watching TV, like going outside, like, everything can be a trigger. And like, I was looking at him like, what? But then I was like, yeah, you're right. Like for me, it's anytime I kind of start to feel uncomfortable and I can't really explain what that uncomfortable feeling is, that's a trigger for me. And it can happen really anywhere is the problem.
So just feeling helpless, like you basically don't like feeling, not like it's not your fault because there's no controlling it. You don't, okay, helpless isn't the right word, out of control. Even though in your brain you can't control some things, you don't like the feeling of being out of control, which I get.
Absolutely. And that feeling,
you have to ground yourself with it.
And I think it's usually like a feeling of despair, right? That like you can't get your head out of. So then it just, yeah.
Exactly. So the danger is staying in that despair and not being able to get your head out of it. And where that can lead us with mental health issues, that can lead right down the drain. So we want to notice these triggers, be aware of them, and nip them in the bud as early as possible so that we don't go down that road. So we should have a triggers action plan.
Oh wait, what was
you want to hear mine?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry.
Do you? No, that's
sorry.
Cool.
I really,
no, that's
really
okay.
do.
No, it's total. I'm glad. It's cool. It's okay because daylight savings time.
That's a big
one. I know
one.
that sounds like I know now. I know seasonal affective disorder. I was talking to my cousin about this today. Like, and especially for me because I have to take medicine not just for my mental health, but I have to take it for my epilepsy situation, just keeping it under control. So people don't realize this. Just because the clocks change doesn't mean the time changes on a clock. So I have to switch when I take my medications back an hour. And it's the biggest pain in the arse ever. And it matters because for the few days that goes on like that, so literally the even thought of daylight savings coming, when the days start to shorten, and I can tell, I'm one of these weirdos that can tell, I'm like, today is shorter. Today was shorter, It starts to piss me off and I get mad. And there's a whole argument out there about staying on freaking Atlantic Standard Time like we should, because it's ridiculous. And it's healthier. Like there's actual science out there behind what I'm talking about. See, it's triggering me right now. There's science behind this.
No, it is. It's amazing how much it affects.
We lose efficiency during daylight savings in this country. We lose mental health. More people are doing bad things to themselves during that time frame. Seasonal affective disorder is a real thing that just I've had so many psychiatrists be like, well, you know what time of year it is. Right. But so me, like as it is, it's August, right? And I'm like, okay, we've got some time, but I know it's coming. But when it gets to September, no matter how nice it is, no matter what's going on, because I know it's a struggle. I have to switch my meds, which is 9 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock or whatever else. So it's earlier and it changes my entire situation. And I definitely feel lag from even my meds. So I have the time lag and I have the med lag. And I'm just like, it's like one of the worst times of the year for me. Like my mental health shoots straight up when it's, daylight savings. Boom. Screw you, winter. I hate you. And winter's tough enough because it's winter. But it's just, I hate it. It's a big one. That was like something that when you said that, I was like, that like does take a portion of my year. It takes time. So I think I gave you other ones too. What were the other ones that I gave you?
I'm so glad you brought that one up because that's a big one for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people
Yes.
listening can relate.
Oh my God. I
And you-
wish people would pay better attention to some of these things that we do that we just do without asking about them. You know what I mean? Whatever. Yeah. And I think I told you guys earlier that I get angrier. See, I just did it just there. Oh no. My attention. Bye. Let's watch this movie I've been wanting to see forever. What just happened for the first 10 minutes? And I do it's sometimes absent seizure kind of deal where I just kind of zone completely out and can't remember. I mean, it's not, I'm much better and I understand now that it's my attention and not my seizures. But I mean, I used to have the drift off seizure where someone would be talking to me. I have no idea that was going on. Like, boom. And, so that's a good one. That's why you guys know why I do that stuff. And executive dysfunction is like when I start to realize that I should be getting up and doing the dishes and having my coffee, and suddenly I'm not, and there's no good reason. And I can't pay a bill today because it's the worst thing I've ever seen. And how could I possibly open my computer? Because that starts me being mad and guilty and all of the crap that goes with that. But those are definitely like where I know I'm daylight savings, man. I hate you.
Yeah, that's a big one. So next in our plan, we have our early warning signs. So these are internal. They happen inside of us. And despite our best efforts at staying well, we may experience these signs that indicate that further action is needed than we've already taken. So, something's progressed beyond being a trigger, or maybe it has nothing to do with that. It's just, maybe it's chemical, but it's an early warning sign. And some of mine are lose interest in activities that I enjoy, either not sleeping or sleeping too much, and neglecting self-care. Like maybe I stop exercising, and I love to exercise, or maybe I am not taking as many showers as I normally do. Anything having to do with hygiene or taking care of myself. So what do you guys experience as your early warning signs?
Yeah, mine are definitely like sleeping too much, neglect of self-care as well, neglecting the house. So I'm usually like pretty good at like keeping things clean. I'm a big neat freak. Like I like routine. So that's definitely one where I know. And then really neglecting relationships. I won't call people. I won't text people. I just don't want to deal with it.
I totally relate to that. I'll just fall off the face of the earth. And then of course everyone's looking for me and I'm like even more annoyed because I want to just be left alone, but I've created this situation.
Exactly. Like, don't make me get on the phone and explain what's going on.
Exactly. Don't make me tell you where I am.
Yeah, exactly.
I shouldn't have to tell you what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
You should know. Yeah, I think that, so I've written these down, and yet sometimes it's just like tough for me because this is the biggest one. I am an angry pants. I get angry, and I get angrier at everything that I've been angry and resolved in the past. I get angry at things like it's like I get angry at the universe. Screw you. You've done all these things. You've taken all these things away. I get angry at something somebody said that wasn't even like directed at me. I get angry on behalf of other people. I get angry at what I'm watching. I'm not a like wall puncher or anything, but I become this like drawn out, like where I can be angry at literally everything. Specifically, I will get like specific in my brain as to why that thing sucks. It could be something as stupid as the sprinkler's not working. The hose won't wrap up.
Well, that's frustrating.
Yeah, but I get pissed about it. It's my problem. And a lot of that is because, like, I know that's parental. My dad and I share a trait of that sort of chip on your shoulder anger that you get. And that's something that I know where it comes from. Not in a bad way, actually, in a good way. But I start to get like, oh, sure, but my friend had to pass away from some, stupid cancer disease or something a couple of years ago, and this douchebag gets to walk around the earth. And I mean, like that kind of thing where it's like, it's not mental. It's just that I start to take like everything that I perceive as the worst thing ever in my life and the bad things that keep happening and all these people who I get mad at authority. I get mad at my husband's boss. I get mad sometimes at my husband, which I don't necessarily think is the best thing to do, but it's like everything. And again, but I don't externalize it completely. I'll internalize like 2/3 of it, and then the rest of it, like but the other third is no less like messed up. It's still loud and angry and kind of illogical, which I don't like to be, which makes me angrier. Because now I'm like, well, now you're just being irrational. It's like,
It's a cycle.
Yeah, I can definitely, that's a big one. I know that when I start to get to that point that it's getting, and then, I start to like dread things. Oh my God. Go ahead.
So what are some of the things you could do, both of you, when you have these early warning signs to address them?
Oh, sure. Ask the hard questions. I see how it is. Okay, so some of the things I'm trying to work on with the anger, if you don't mind me going first.
Go for it.
Identifying it. Being like, okay, here it is. I'm angry. What is this happening? Like, why? Why is this happening? Katrina, you go. Or we can go back and forth.
Yeah, I think it's really a difficult question because
ask it again.
And, what I've been taught,
ask it again.
what I've been taught that doesn't work is like, do some meditation, do some yoga, get yourself out of the routine a little bit. Maybe making goals for yourself, and they can be small goals. That's sometimes really helpful. Am I on the right track here?
Yeah. One thing I would say you always want to do is you want to make sure you're doing the things in your daily maintenance plan. So if you're experiencing these signs, first you want to go back to your daily maintenance plan and read over those things that you put on there that you're going to do every day for your mental well-being. And you want to make sure you did all those that day and that you're doing them every day. So that's one thing.
Okay, so I see this is just for me because I'm a dork. Let's review. Where we like just a really quick review. So first step,
like a recap.
Yeah, like review this. So the first step is warnings, right?
No, the first step was the daily maintenance plan.
Daily maintenance plan. So that's what you were saying is refer back to that.
Yes.
So with the daily
those are the list of things that you do every day to keep yourself
the baseline,
basically.
So the daily maintenance, the baseline. Okay. And then the next one.
Then your triggers. Then you have a triggers action plan. That's going to be what actions are you going to take when you're triggered that address your triggers, makes you feel better. So it could be walking your dog, either of you. It could be calling a friend. Anything that helps you feel less triggered, you want to do.
Baseline triggers.
Then you want to get to your early warning signs. These are signs that something isn't quite right, but it's very, you're detecting it very early on. So you have the chance to intercede. And you're going to notice those signs, and then you're going to have your early warning signs action plan, which could be to make sure you're doing all the things on your daily maintenance plan. Maybe it's calling your therapist. Maybe it's calling a family member. Could be taking a bubble bath, anything, any self-care, anything that helps you feel better when you're feeling like you're stepping towards a mental health episode.
Okay, so that's where you start to really need to refer back to the first step, which is your original baseline.
Which is like your daily routine type thing.
Okay.
And maybe you go back and look at what you're like when you're well at this point too, when you're detecting early warning signs, to see if anything seems not quite right. So you can be more, sure that like, oh, I think that this really is something that I need to pay attention to.
Actually, that's a question I have. Is this something that you should do while you're experiencing a mental episode, or while you are in a stable condition?
Is what?
When
you want to write the plan when you're well.
When you're well.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a really good question, actually, because if you were to write it in the middle of having a cycle, you could conceivably make your baseline out to be something really unrealistic. That would be not cool. Okay, perfect.
Thank you for the breakdown.
Sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Now, in spite of our best efforts, at times things are going to progress. Maybe we just didn't catch the early warning signs. And so now things are really breaking down. They're headed toward a crisis. So what are some of the symptoms that you guys have when things are like really getting to a bad place?
Like getting to a bad place or at a bad place?
They're starting to be in a bad place, yeah.
Okay, so if it's like a manic type thing, it's going into anger, self-hurt, any way to get rid of the pain that I'm feeling. And that's usually through things that really you shouldn't do, right? Is self-hurt yourself. So I would say that is...
Okay.
Does that answer the question? What was the question again?
Yeah, when things are breaking down, what do you like? What are some of the things you notice about yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be it. And the sleeping, the irritability, not being able to get things done, feeling hopeless, feeling just worthless, things like that.
Okay, that's actually an interesting point with the worthlessness thing, because that is a big one that I think that, we've all talked about that just separately, is that the feeling of worthlessness and the reinforcing of the feeling of worthlessness as you cycle out of that or cycle into the breaking down phase. I've talked about it a little in the past, but my panic gets up. And then I really start to be like, am I dying? I'm dying. I'm dying of everything. Existential dread. Like that's all day, all night. I can't be awake. I will literally be like, nothing matters. And not in a way that I wallow in self-pity almost, like a classic pathetic literature character. Just like, woe is me, in the most unreasonable ways sometimes, where I'm just like, nobody wants to talk to me. Nobody wants to see me. Nobody's my friend. I don't know how I got here. All these people are lying to me, which is the most illogical thing ever when you consider who your friends and family are. And you're like, yeah, because these are totally the kind of people that spend 8.5 years being your friend and then are like, screw her. I'm just being nice.
Yeah, saying self-pity, that's such a good point of, God.
Yeah.
Just really like feeling like that. Yeah.
Sucked in your hole of your
exactly.
I start to we've all talked about this. I start to think of the worst scenarios. Mm-hmm. I'm going to leave the house and it's going to burn down. And I have trauma. I lost a business to that very thing. And so it seems highly logical to me because of the trauma portion for me. Mm-hmm. So I suddenly believe that there's going to be an electrical fire in the walls and I'm going to come back and it's just, and because it's happened to me before and it had such a far reaching impact on my life. I don't hear from someone for a couple of minutes, hours, whatever. And they don't usually text me that often, but suddenly in my mind, they're dead and I'm never going to see them again because that's happened to me and it's happened suddenly. And so all of a sudden it's like, who's getting taken next? And again, it plays into that angry thing I was talking about, but it becomes a void angry where I'm just staring into the like, this is going to go away and this is dumb and nobody cares about any of these things and I'm pathetic for caring at all. And so like I start to attack my own empathy a lot. I just go right after it. Because I mean, you were saying sensitive. I can be very sensitive too. And that's one of the things that I just am like, why are you such a pushover? Why do you let people do this? Why do you let people do that? It gets bad. I mean, it gets scary. And it's like, every logical part of me is like, cut that out, but I don't listen to it. And that's where I get really scared because it's like, why aren't you listening to your reason here? Will you ever listen to your reason again? It just becomes like a catch-22 over and over.
Yeah, I hear you. I start to get really paranoid and delusional. Like I start believing that the world isn't real, that it was like just an elaborate hoax that's been created to study me, or that you know, the streetlights in the neighborhood are communicating with me, or that you know, different things, of bits of paranoia or delusion. I'll start to think that I'm like a robot or things like that. Just
That's so scary.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've had seizures, so I have those gaps, but I have very little knowledge of delusion episodes. Is that something that you are willing to talk about at all? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot. That's a really silly thing, but
yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. Do you have a specific question?
well, like, okay, so the like you seem to like the robots and the streetlights. Is it like an electronic thing that has to do? I mean, is there something that?
No, I don't think so. It's just like if a light will go out when I'm nearby, I'll think that happened specifically for me, and that street light was telling me something, and if it's flickering, you know, only when I'm there, then I know that was a message for me. Or delusions more like when like I'll believe that that, you know, everyone else on Earth is an actor and I'm the only real person, and they're all just
Like
like
the Truman Show.
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
exactly, like the Truman Show.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's wow.
Wow. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I never want to push anybody too hard. I think it's like we all sort of deal with things, but it's so different for everybody.
Yeah.
So let's keep
can all
learning
relate.
that.
Yeah.
Right.
We can all relate, but we're all individuals too. So, okay, when things are breaking down, what are some things we could do? Some things I can do are I can call my psychiatrist and get in right away to see her. You know, she's really good about taking me right away in an emergency. So I'll do that. I could have a friend or family member come over to be with me for support. You know, maybe if I'm not feeling safe, they'll have them stay with me around the clock. You know, right now I don't live alone, but when I did live alone, that was something that I always took into account, that I would need to have someone stay around the clock because, you know, I couldn't be sure what I would do otherwise. I could give someone I trust all my meds and credit cards because I've used my meds to try and hurt myself before. And when I'm super manic, I'll go on a wild spending spree, and I don't want to come back to that disaster. So give someone I trust those things in advance, not in advance, but when I see things heading south before they get too bad.
Yeah. Like things that I do are definitely, I usually can like feel something coming, and I'll try to let my partner know, like, hey, something's up, and I don't know what that is yet. It might not be serious. It could be serious. Just letting you know. Second thing is definitely calling my psychiatrist. Although I will admit that I am scared to death sometimes to talk to my psychiatrist and get my meds changed. Like I really worry about that. And if for anybody that knows, when you're on the right medication and you feel it like you are, you don't want to change that. And changing it can be really hard and can affect you mentally and physically and in ways that I don't want to deal with. So sometimes I do have a hard time calling the psychiatrist, but I do. And yeah, I would say those are like my big two, like, definitely like just try and like take a shower, try to just like let it roll off, right? Doesn't always work, but sometimes.
Is your psychiatrist a talk therapist or just, do you mind? I'm asking weird questions tonight.
So I actually have not seen a talk therapist in a while. I had an issue with mine where I didn't feel comfortable anymore. And it's been hard, as you all know, finding a new doctor. It's not easy, but I'm
harder than ever right now.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because I know that there's a big disparity. I got lucky out west, and I actually had a psychiatrist who was a talk therapist, and so he was prescribing my meds, but he wasn't messing with them. You know what I mean? Because he was a pretty progressive guy. He was working with the University of Washington psych students. He like would ask me if I heard something new about neuroscience or whatever. He'd be like, "Oh, where'd you find that?" I'm like, "Oh, I find that, I follow our neuroscience subreddit or whatever because, it's close to me now." And he's like, "Yeah, send me that link." And I had never experienced that before. I mean, I called him by his first name. He like insisted. This guy actually, this totally on his own, this is a little separate thing, but he actually came to the hospital when I was inpatient, and he like checked on me for my brain surgeries. He was like, I was here. He came to check on me and my husband, asked like both of us how we were doing. It was this really cool, like you don't find that ever. I've been really fortunate. I've had a handful of these kinds of guys, but my psychiatrists all write my meds. That's all they do. And I got really super lucky because my talk therapist I go right to my talk therapist, and I have her cell phone. She did that on her own. She was like, because I lost healthcare. And I was really worried about it. And she didn't just front me. She paid for one of my sessions and then gave me her cell phone. It's like, but you don't find that. That's like a once in a lifetime deal. That's a total, like, I just lucked out in where I am. So, but definitely when I start to feel something's off, I get right with her. Like, it's one of those times where I need you more than just once a month. Yeah, because for me, I start to I stop eating or I overeat. It's one or the other. Those are like the two times when I know. And if I'm and I eat the same thing over and over and over, or like the same two things. So that's usually a sign where I'm like, okay, stop. I definitely tell my husband because he's been with me we've been all together. We've been together 20 years. So, and he's one of the people that helped push me in the direction of finding mental health care. Because it was like, this isn't the person that I know. And I don't, I mean, I'm really lucky again in that regard. So I tell him and we talk and I say, I'm feeling completely off. And just like you said, Katrina, I don't know what it is sometimes. It's like, it's this gut thing, but I don't know what it is. I just know it's coming. And
not just that, not a behavior doesn't usually change when that happens. It just, something's off. And that's where this is difficult, has been difficult for me. So sorry, Mel. So sorry. Because there's so many times where you just don't know. Like you don't know where something is coming from. And I feel like
icky, and it gets and there's all different ways of feeling it. Like sometimes, I was getting the chills for 3 months right before this whole thing started. I couldn't figure it out. I thought I was getting sick, but there was no other things. I was just getting the chills a lot. And it's just I felt like the hairs on the back of my neck were rising, and I just didn't like it at all. And I'm not omniscient or something, but I just the way that everything was feeling around me was so icky. And I was I actually was paying attention to sort of where the situation was going. I was like, this is going to go bad and it's going to make my brain. This is a hard time right now. I know we come back to it a lot, but this is all the things that I've worked on for 15 years are kind of going straight out the window right now because, oh, hi, I'm a global pandemic and I'm just going to land right in the world so a lot of the things that I even use, getting to see my friends I I can't go. Like, I mean, I go to Ren Fair every year. I don't get to go this year. I don't get to go. And it's a big, huge part. There's people I only see once a year at Ren Fair. They live all over the country. I don't get to see them now. Like, that's breaking me down a little bit, a lot. Like,
well, so what now Julia, what do we do now? When things are
well, I'm glad you brought up feelings and behaviors, because this doesn't just have to do with behaviors. It does have to do with feelings too. So you can track your feelings using these same, I think most of the examples we've been giving have more to do with behavior, but you could just as easily swap a feeling in there as well, and be monitoring that feeling or looking out for that.
Yeah.
So crisis planning is next. So noticing and responding to signs early reduce the chances of getting to a crisis, but you may at some point find yourself in a situation where you do need another person to take, or persons to take over aspects of your care for a period of time, because you're in crisis. So you want to have a plan in place in advance so that things go the way you want them to go. The person's walking your dog is the person you want to be walking your dog. Someone's paying your bills if you're going to be incapacitated for an amount of time. Someone's getting your mail. Someone's doing all the things.
Do you recommend that if you're in that state, right, of crisis, that you have somebody that's actually the point person for all of that? Like if I was in a crisis, I couldn't find somebody to walk my dog. I couldn't do that.
Exactly. That's why you write it all. That's part of the plan. That's crisis planning. I want this person to do X. I want this person to do Y. Okay. On these days.
You made that plan beforehand with those people.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up communication before, because this requires a lot of communication. You need to find people who are on board to do these things for you, and that you trust, and that they're willing. And they need to know this could happen at any time. You may be hospitalized, you might be, just incapacitated, debilitated, whatever.
Yeah. That's really important, that one right there.
Yeah, I know. She said it earlier, and it's one of those things that we definitely need to highlight is like you're giving your credit cards and your keys and your most precious family members. I mean, our dogs are definitely parts of we've talked about this. So
yeah.
That's huge. And if they don't, you can't kind of come out of the blue, because that'll I guess that would make it worse, right? Because then you're like, why can't you help me?
No, it needs to be in advance when you're well, and you sit down with someone and you walk them through your whole plan, and let them ask questions, let them, say that, yes, they're on board. They understand what this means.
What I also love about that is that you're being open and honest with people. And not being ashamed about it, right? Like this is just this is a pamphlet of like my life basically, and what can happen. And I need you as a support. Can you be that support? If I ever get to this point. I love that.
Yeah,
too, because it kind of goes back to your routine thing where you're able to and for me, the plot, nobody goes to plotting it out.
Yeah.
That's almost a little more settling, because the idea is if you know what you're going to do when the inevitable happens, it takes a ton of pressure off, because I think it's pretty realistic to say that none of us are going to be able to curb this entirely. We are going to feel this way when it happens. It's going to happen to us because of our mental health situation.
This is also a great thing to give your partner. I couldn't imagine a better resource than them me being in a manic episode and then looking in this book, looking at all my triggers and what can they do to help me. I could just see that being a really...
It's almost like Julia knew you well enough to know this might work for you.
I gently suggested.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. I think it's good. I'm glad we're talking about it, because that does help humanize it a little more and get going through each step. But more than that, it's I'm glad that I'm hearing it, because this is the kind of stuff that does work for me. I am write it down nerd. Love it.
So the crisis plan is a big chunk of the overall plan, and there's all different categories it breaks down to in the plan. If you go to the link that's on the YouTube page, you can see all the different categories. But basically, you're just allocating responsibilities for different things and saying how you want your affairs to be handled, who you want to be, if you need someone dealing with your insurance company. I mean, if you're married, that would be your spouse, but not everyone's married. I'm not married. Who do I want? I have my father has power of attorney, for me when I'm incapacitated, so that he can get on the phone with anyone he needs to, and he has automatic authority, legal authority, to speak on my behalf without any questions, without any rigmarole.
Yeah, so important.
So that's something you may want to consider, having an advance directive, so someone would be able to speak on your behalf, even in legal situations.
Because you are incapacitated in a lot of the ways. I mean, I've had tonic-clonic seizures. That's, grandma. I'm just out. Like, I don't know what's happening during that time. And I'm not always, that's awesome. I love the idea of like writing it down for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny that I never even thought of that before.
I know, most of us don't.
It's such an aha. It's another aha.
It's probably more helpful for like other people in our lives than like us, because we know these things, we're just writing it down.
Yeah.
True. And we're usually like, I think that I trap myself into just thinking that everybody knows what I'm thinking sometimes when I'm in that situation. So it's an even better tool in that way, where it's like, hey, I do know what you're thinking now, because you actually wrote down what you will be thinking in potentially. Obviously it's going to change, but like even the baseline. If you're sharing the plan with someone you can care about and they understand all of the steps, that's awesome. So excited we talked about this.
It can be a bonding experience as well for you and a partner, absolutely, or a friend or family member, whoever, and a way for them to better understand you, like you were saying, Katrina.
Well, imagine how relieving it must be to get something like that.
Plus, you can talk openly about it in that setting. And I think that maybe we underestimate like a person that's helping us with that, maybe underestimating like how much it can be helpful. Because then you're saying, I will start dreading the whole wide world. Oh, that's why you're that extra cranky. That's awesome. It's, yay. Post-crisis. Oh, okay.
So, at some point you recover, but recovering from a mental health crisis can take as long as recovering from a serious illness or a surgery or anything like that. So this isn't something you just hop out the door and you're on your way and A-okay. You may need the same amount of assistance as someone recovering from a major surgery. So what is that assistance going to look like? And this is the part of your plan that's going to be most frequently evolving, because, from the first week that you're out of whatever you were, if you're hospitalized or whatnot, the first week you're going to need more assistance than the second week, ostensibly, and so on and so forth. So you're going to be evolving this, but it's great to get something down on paper from the get-go, so that maybe you have someone lined up to drive you places if you need to be driven anywhere. You need to go back for checkups, doctor's checkups. Of someone who can drive you. Maybe someone else grocery shops for you. Just for a week or two. Just until you're really back on your feet. And that's about it, actually.
That's interesting, though, because I've had recoveries from being inpatient, and to think of it that way is a really different way than I've thought about it. So it's true. It's exhausting.
Yeah, maybe someone's giving you your meds. Like, I don't know what the crisis was. Maybe you were a danger to yourself, so you're going to have someone else administer your meds to you for the first 2 weeks that you're out. Maybe that can be a family member or a spouse, whoever is most convenient, who can be trusted with that task. Things like that, like just anything. If you're not able to, again, walk your dog every day, maybe you have someone lined up to walk your dog. Maybe someone just to sit with you and keep you company, so that you're not alone. Because the last thing you want to feel when you're just getting out of a mental health crisis is to feel alone.
And oftentimes that's it. That's the feeling. of loneliness that really happens after treatment. Even when you're with family or you're with friends, it doesn't mean that that doesn't mean it's not loneliness.
Because there's a little bit of recovering, like feeling like, I don't know, I feel like an asshole even after all that. So I'm like, okay, I feel lonely and I feel like an asshole. And now I have to go around and apologize as part of my recovery. And that's part of my deal too. And I found that I need to get to that place because I do feel way better if I just own it. But that's a lot for me. I mean, it's not, apologizing is something that doesn't come easy in my family, period. So I was not conditioned to make apologies. I mean, I almost swung the other direction, over apologize sometimes. I'm sorry. But that's like the most important time to be like, look, I was acting this way because of the situation. And most people, I mean, if there's someone that you trust, they're going to be okay because they understand. But it doesn't mean that they didn't just go through that with you.
Exactly. But you feel very separate from that.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think we don't always give caregivers enough credit and on everything, not just mental health. But I mean, they had to just go through that with us and be there. So, I mean, I don't know. I would definitely make that as part of my being well at the end, where I like, if I put that in my baseline is, would you treat the people that you are shitting on? Would you treat them that way when you were well? I guess.
No, and it's so emotionally draining for you as the individual, but like for your partner or like whoever you're around as well. Like for me, it's you know, it's this form of just being mean, not being me, right? And so it's like it's apology after apology after apology of I can't explain that. Like usually I can't. Like I don't know.
Yeah, because we don't always know where it's coming. Like we know fundamentally where it's coming from logically, but it's not always controllable.
It's not us.
Yeah,
right.
It's not us.
Yeah.
So I think there's one more question that I think we wanted to get answered before we end the show tonight. And I think that's, what are you like when you are well?
Me?
All of us.
Oh.
We start all the way. Let's see. I
can start if you want me to start.
Yeah, sure.
When I'm well, I am like, I know like this word like can mean so many things, but I feel happy. I feel motivated. I feel energetic. I feel like I'm not down on myself. Like I got this, and you know, nothing can stop me.
I think
not in a manic way.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I know you should know. You should clarify that because totally. There are two different ways of feeling awesome.
Yeah.
I think that just like what you're saying, it's because I'm losing my mind right now. But it's like, what am I like when I'm well? Is I am able to talk normally to people about what I'm feeling. I'm able to take joy in the things that I am supposed to take joy in, that I usually take joy, a great amount of it in. And I mean, we're pretty open, obviously, because we're talking about this on a internet thing, but I'm more able to be open about. I wouldn't have been able to step into this role if I hadn't been able to be someone that talks about my mental illness. And so when I get in this state where it's like, fuck you, don't understand, but it's not, I mean, when I'm able to do the things that I want to do the way I want to do them. But now this kind of brings it all the way back around to the circumstances we're living in today, and sort of like, so, but well is different now. Because I can't do a lot of the things that I was doing when I was well. So I think the question that I think we can talk about a little bit more in the future or whatever along is like, how do you make well, like what does new well look like? Just like the new Toolbox. Like, because we're going to have to, I mean, it's not going back to the way it was. We're going to have to find a new version of what makes us feel. And I mean, we can do the outside stuff is great and the dog things are great, but like bars and restaurants and sporting events, and that stuff's not coming back anytime soon. If you're being realistic, it may not come back in the form that we understand it at all. So, I mean, maybe this is a new well. Like maybe hanging out. I mean, I'm really like getting to know you guys has made me feel a lot better during a very tough time. And it may not be the traditional friends that I would go to, but I'm learning a lot about, and it makes me, I'll always say this, I don't feel alone when I'm here in a situation with other people that are struggling in similarly, not exactly the same, but similarly. And that just feels so great. Is like, maybe the new well is us talking to each other about it because we have to. And because we have this outlet right here that does make our life a little better, where we can talk on an internet. We'd be stuck in our houses otherwise. We wouldn't be able to talk to each other. We'd be going crazy, like for real crazy, not totally crazy, but like not like we're inconvenienced. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. This is part of my wellness toolbox for sure.
I mean, and I think that's why we created this show, right? Like we want to not only be able to talk about, you know, what we go through, but we want people to be able to open up and talk about what they're going through.
Yeah, I think that we're getting to know everybody. This is only our third show. So I think, but it's nice because I can get more open up with you guys as I get to know you guys. So it works out really well. And then same for everybody else who's joining us, which we appreciate a great deal. We've gotten such really good feedback from people on this show. And it's really great to see that it's helpful to people right away. I don't know about you guys, but I feel great when I get an email or a chat message or something from someone just being like, thanks. I feel a little bit better today knowing that there's at least 3 other people.
What about you, Julia?
I'm vivacious, outdoorsy, impulsive, which I think is it's a hard one for me to keep track of, because as I head towards a crisis, I get much more impulsive and my risk-taking increases like tenfold. But I always have an impulsive streak, so I have to remember that. And again, it goes back to like, is this part of who I am when I'm well or not? And yes, I have to admit it is. I am impulsive.
Yeah.
I love skydiving.
Wow. I guess that's healthy impulsive.
This has been a fantastic show. Julia, thank you so much for walking us through the WRAP plan. I just want to remind everybody, it is in the description below. Take time, fill it out, you know, see if it's going to work for you. I definitely will be doing that.
Cool. Thank you both for being here and for participating so openly. That was awesome.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad we did this, you guys. I'm glad that we have another Tuesday for everybody, and I'm using this. I'm definitely using this. This is awesome. So excited.
It's definitely improved my overall quality of life. I will say that. And I'm not being hyperbolic.
Yes, that's the word.
I'm not. It has improved my quality of life. I can say that honestly.
I love it.
Like it would. I mean, if I were going to go travel abroad or something, I'd have a whole outline and plan for how I was going to do that. I mean, that seems equally as important or something like that, you know.
Yes. Well, this has been great.
One thing you can control in a massive, uncontrollable thing.
It's so true. This has been great. Again, the link is below. Please take time and fill it out. We will be here next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern for another episode of Baggage Claim with a special guest as well.
Oh, yay.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good night.